I think we're live. Okay, we didn't have the 30-second countdown like we normally do. All right, anyway, welcome into the latest edition of the Schuster Zone podcast. I'm David Schuster, and very shortly, I'll be joined by a good friend and a good longtime friend of mine. That's Mr. Kenny Mcreynolds. He's the host of Sports Edition on WCIU. Also, you've heard Kenny on MeTV. You've also heard him on various radio stations over the years. Very familiar face, and he's very tied into both the sports scene, the entertainment scene, the political scene. We're going to bring Kenny in just a moment. What are we going to talk about today? Let's see. Should we start on soccer? Nah, we're not going to start on soccer. We could start on the Ryder Cup because, listen, I was really into that. We could also talk about the heavyweight fight yesterday between Alexander Usyk, who is now your heavyweight champion as he beat Anthony Joshua. We could talk about the Cubs and the White Sox, and we will. But first, how can we not talk about the Bears? And what a disaster yet again it was today in Cleveland, of all places. When I think of the Bears and I think of a disaster, and I hate to use it in these terms, you think of disaster, you think of like the Titanic, the Hindenburg, those are disasters. But really, the Bears today in Cleveland, that was a disaster. And I don't even really have to, give any kind of adjectives. All I have to do is run down the numbers. Pretty self-explanatory. The Bears had and I do mean 47 yards of total offense today. 47 yards. Aren't you supposed to have that like on your opening drive? They had that all day long. The 47 yards was their worst showing in 4 decades. Believe me, it doesn't end right there. They had all of 6 first downs for an entire game. That's 6 first downs in 60 minutes of play of action. Justin Fields, his very first game starting as a pro, and we'll get to him and maybe criticize him a little bit, although really he's really not the big problem here. Justin Fields was 6 of 20 for 68 yards. He's also sacked 9 times for 67 yards. That means that the Bears had a net passing number today of 1 yard passing. I can't even begin to tell you how awful that is. And all the plays that they ran, I'm not really sure how many plays they ran, but you can figure it out. If they had 47 yards and they had an average of 1.1 yard per play, so they basically had about 50 plays, or no, I think that about 45 plays, give or take. 45 plays, they averaged 1.1 yard per play. It doesn't end there either, by the way. Justin Fields, and I really felt bad for him, he was sacked 9 times. Count it. 9 times for a total of 67 yards. Now, who's the boob who's calling all these plays? Oh, wait a second. It's the head coach. The head coach who was calling plays last year, then he gave it up. Now he's doing it again, and they're a disaster offensively. He admitted after the game, his exact quote, "I didn't do a good enough job of getting these guys ready for the game." And my retort to that is, no shit, Sherlock. You are definitely to blame. And so is your boss, Ryan Pace. And I'm not saying anything that, believe me, all the talk show hosts after today's game, Ed O'Bradovich, I know, because I've worked with Eddie over the years. He was really ragging on them, rightfully so, along with Dan Hampton. And good thing Doug Buffone, at least for this reason only, is not still here to see this garbage, because he would have had an aneurysm on top of everything else. So, the Bears were just embarrassingly bad. And there was one guy on my Facebook page who said, no, they weren't a disaster. The defense. All right, the defense played pretty well, certainly in the first half. They kept them in the game. There's no question about it. They had 5 sacks of their own today. Robert Quinn is now up to 3 sacks on the season. That's 2 more than he had all of last year. So credit to him for playing better. But in the end, they caved in. And I don't blame them for caving in. When you see your offense is as bad as their offense is, your defense, after a while, just starts to cave in. They gave up over 400 yards offense to Cleveland. Cleveland was making mistake after mistake after mistake themselves early in the game. Mayfield was overthrowing everybody. He was 1 of 5 initially, and the Bears obviously could not take advantage. So, again, Ryan Pace, as a general manager, is a disaster. No offensive line. He drafted somebody in the 2nd round who had back problems. He may not even play this whole year because he had surgery already. He just drafted Justin Fields, his 2nd quarterback, fairly high, Trubisky being the other one who's already out of town, obviously. And who knows what's going to happen with Justin Fields. I do believe that Justin Fields is going to be good in the long run, but it might be a long run down the road. until he gets an offensive line to guard him, he's in deep doo-doo. He was running for his life today. And again, part of it is I don't blame him, but he said something really stupid after that first preseason game where he said the speed of today's game, meaning the exhibition game, is no different than it was for college. I can guarantee you he didn't say that today. The only thing he was probably muttering under his breath as he was sacked each of the 9 times is, what the fuck am I doing out here? I'm getting killed. So with all that in mind, we'll talk about the Cubs and the White Sox. The Cubs had their final home game today before they finish off on the road. They came from ahead to lose to St. Louis again, and the Cardinals have won 16 in a row, and the Cubs were the last 3 that they beat there. The White Sox finished off their – well, no, actually, they have one more makeup game in Detroit tomorrow afternoon, and then they come home for their final week before they go into the divisional series against the Houston Astros. The Astros have lost 4 in a row for what little that's worth. The White Sox will be the road team initially in that series. So we'll talk about the Cubs and the White Sox, Major League Baseball. I got a special subject that I want to bring Kenny in on later on. And at the end of today's podcast, we will have Stump the Kenny Mac, as we do each and every week. And I tailored the quiz questions after whoever's on. So with all that ado, let's bring in my good friend, Kenny Mcreynolds. Again, he's the host of Sports Edition. How many shows now, Kenny, for you over the years?
We've done over 1,000. I don't know the exact amount, but you can see the jerseys behind me from all of our pro teams. When Mayor Rahm Emanuel came on year before last and brought me the jerseys, Sports Edition 1,000. And the Bulls, Bears, Cubs, Blackhawks, and White Sox all gave me jerseys. It's been a lot of fun, David. And I think you wrapped up the Bears pretty good. Let's talk about the Chicago Sky. They won today.
At least they won. Hey, a team in Chicago won.
Yeah. Well, White Sox won today. The Bears,
yeah, they did.
That was an embarrassment. The offensive line, for some reason today, David, I couldn't sleep. I woke up at 4:00 a.m. and I turned on Heroes and Icon. That's a Waggle broadcasting station, one of the stations we own. And at 4:00, there were 2 episodes of The Green Hornet, followed by 2 episodes of Superman, followed by 2 episodes of Batman. Now, I watched all 6 of those episodes this morning. I guarantee you, the Green Hornet, Kato, Batman, Robin, Batgirl, Superman, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen will all be better on the offensive line today than what the Chicago Bears put out there in Cleveland. That was a disgrace.
Jason Peters, I guess he'll go into the Hall of Fame because he was All-Pro so many times. I mean, he's 39 going on 80 seemingly after today. But he's not the answer. I mean, this is how desperate Ryan Pace got for having a garbage offensive line. And again, I'm not saying anything that is not either true or has been said by every football pundit in the city. You got no offensive line. Everybody knew that. He drafted a guy who's already had back surgery, who might not even play this whole season. He reaches into the, I don't even know what you would call the trash heap, to be honest with you, Jason Peters at 39 years old, Kenny.
Trying to play at 39 years old, which is unbelievable, but that goes to show how bad this offensive line is. I don't know what the hell he's thinking. And you cannot blame Justin Fields for today because you could put anybody out there. Tom Brady would look horrible with that offensive line. If nobody's going to block for you, I don't care who you are. You could be Joe Namath. You could be Tom Brady. It doesn't make a difference. That offensive line sucks. It's so bad. But the good thing is Detroit's in town next week. The Bears will probably win by 20, and everybody will be happy. Justin Fields will get his first win as a starting quarterback, and everybody will be blowing up kisses to the sky and talking Super Bowl because the Bears will win against a horrible Detroit team.
Well, yes, they are a horrible team, and they are, I believe they're 0-3 already, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the Bears are a 4-point favorite. It's already been, announced that they're a 4-point favorite for that game. But Detroit basically had Baltimore beat and you saw the end of that game today.
Yeah.
Talk about, you're a really shitty franchise, which the Lions are. They lose on the longest field goal in NFL history on the final play, a 66-yard field goal. And of course it hits the goalpost or the upright and then bounces over.
Yeah, then bounces over. Yeah. Yeah. So Detroit's probably going to come in here with a chip on the shoulder, but the Bears will beat them because Detroit's is horrible. And even the Bears' offensive line should be able to handle the Detroit Lions. But I tell you what, today was a disgrace. It was an embarrassment. They should have made the offensive line walk home. They didn't deserve to go on an airplane. Hey, you guys, walk home. Yeah, it was embarrassing.
It was embarrassing, and I call it a disaster. And again, someone argued with me, but come on, it was a disaster. All right, so
what game were they watching? They said
I don't know. They
hey,
probably turned.
Hey, Cleveland really didn't play well. They should have had 50. They should have had 50.
Yes,
they had 4 field goals. Cleveland sucked too and scored 23 from 26 points. They should have had 50. They could have and should have had 50 points. And the Bears, a disaster.
Well, the Bears defense did play well in the first half. I mean, they came up with some big plays. You know, they stopped them, I think, twice on fourth down, if I'm not mistaken. And Cleveland ran some stupid plays themselves. But, you know, all right, they finally caved in, because how can you not after a while? When you see your offense is as bad as it is, I mean, after a while, you just sort of lose your fight, if you will. And they did in the second half. No question about that.
Also, David, not only, I don't think they gave up as much as they got tired, because it was always 3 and out. Sometimes they'll sit down, and if the Bears go to no huddle, then they come right back out. They're back out in 90 seconds. These guys didn't even get a chance to get a drink of water, and the defense right back out. So I don't know if they gave up as much as they were just tired. You can't expect those guys to be on the field 40 minutes a game.
Yeah,
all right. So it's probably about 50.
Some other things in the game. They're 1 of 11 on third down. I mean, my God, a powder puff team should do better than that. Their best 2 players. I mean, Carlos Santos hits the field goal, so I mean, you know, he's automatic. And their punter punted really well. But if that's the only 2 guys, other than maybe Robert Quinn and a couple other guys occasionally on defense who played well, the rest of the team stunk. They just stunk.
Yeah. Well, your biggest play on offense was a penalty that wasn't a penalty. It was 38 yards. Penalty that wasn't even a penalty, and that's your biggest play on offense. You're not going to win anything like that. I don't care what level. You could be in Little League, but if St. Ignatius could shut out Mcreynolds on Friday night, anything is possible.
I know that's a game
that's what happened.
That's the game that you were at on Friday night, were you not?
No. Friday I actually was at Naperville Central in Equa Valley. We broadcast that game live on the U and went to double overtime, but next Saturday, if I get the plug in at 1:30, we have number 1 Loyola versus Marist, 1:30 live on the U.
Cool.
And the Bears couldn't beat either one of those teams the way they played today.
All right, so again, Justin Fields was awful today, but the play calling was awful. I mean, I don't know what the F they were doing in Lake Forest this past week to get him ready or not ready for this game. Matt Nagy, and I go back, honestly, even before he became head coach, Kenny, Matt Nagy in his last game as a Kansas City, I think he was offensive coordinator, so he was calling plays, and they came from ahead themselves with horrendous play calling in that playoff game, and they lost. Then, of course, they went on to win a Super Bowl very shortly thereafter. And then he comes to Chicago. The first year, yes, they had a really good record. It was against a rotten schedule, to be honest with you, and I think they caught teams off guard. But ever since then, he's been a disaster, Kenny. And, you know, he failed getting Trubisky up to snuff, and now it's only 1 game into his starting regime. Justin Fields looked awful today, and Matt Nagy is to blame for this garbage.
Well, he's calling the plays, and what they have to do is get some plays that goes to Justin Fields' strengths. You know, he's not a pocket guy. Let him roll out. Let him run. Let him be creative. I don't know what the hell they were doing today. You said you don't know what they did in Lake Forest this week to get him prepared. They did absolutely nothing. He wasn't prepared. This team wasn't prepared. I don't know if the last time I saw a team that looked so unprepared in the National Football League as this team did today. You may go back to some of the Trestman teams, because he was a disaster, believe me. Probably the worst coach in the history of the NFL. But this team was a disaster today. They weren't prepared. They weren't ready. They had no scheme. The play calling sucked. And you can't blame Justin Fields. You can't blame him because nobody blocked for him. There was no plays for him that worked to his abilities. It was just a total screw up. And if I'm Virginia McCaskey, I'm not a happy camper.
No, of course not. And that's Alan Bratcher, who's our executive producer of tonight's show. And Alan, if you got any comments, please chime in.
Actually, well, guys, what I came in to show you is the stat lines of both offenses. So I'm going to put it up here now for us. So if you really look at this, the thing that really stands out to me, you know, those total plays by Cleveland, 78 total plays to 42 with ours. They just completely decimated us with the run. As you can see, the passing yards are garbage. You know, the total yards are garbage. You know, what exactly did we see from this offense that makes anybody believe
You didn't.
this is going to
didn't.
change?
Nothing.
There's no game planning. There's no accountability for anyone. I'm just dumbfounded with it, guys.
Well, I tell you what, if this happens next week against a Lions team that sucks, I fire everybody. Everybody goes. I wipe it out.
Today against a formidable Ravens team, they held them to the brink. They should have won that game. Outside of a miracle field goal, Kenny, I wouldn't put it past the Lions to come in here and want to bite some kneecaps, as Mr. Campbell puts it, the coach of the Lions. It's just something that I'm a little nervous about.
Well, I think the Bears are going to win it Sunday. I think the Lions still are a horrible team. But if they don't win, everybody goes. I mean, even the ball boy goes. Everybody, the water boy, everybody. Just go. Everybody go.
Hey, Alan, no reason to be nervous. You're not on their payroll. If they lose, it's okay.
If you watched my pregame show today, Dave, and my show on Thursday, I'm not going to hold back on Nagy.
You shouldn't.
Guys, I've seen some things thrown around today about maybe him getting a job at McDonald's when he's done.
I saw that.
Just something that, guys, like, it's just, it's the same old song and dance for me, a different year. It's a good offensive team that comes in, they blow them out. A bad team, we beat them out. We're in the middle of mediocrity, in my opinion, guys. I just don't see it changing. Do you?
No, I don't. I mean, how many years has Ryan Pace now been the general manager? This is his 5th or 6th year?
I believe this is his 6th year, correct?
Okay. They're no better than they were. Okay. They've had a couple of players, that make a little bit of a difference, but overall, no. Yes. Matt Nagy has been a head coach now for 1 year less because John Fox was the first year under Ryan Pace. And he's done nothing really ever since the first season when, like I said, they had a good record-wise. But, I don't know. It's just such a effing disaster watching the Bears. And it's embarrassing. I mean, if they're on national TV, then it's a national embarrassment. Today it was just a regional or a local embarrassment. They never cease to amaze me how embarrassing it is watching the Bears sometimes play football. And
why can't they get it right? Why can't they get it right? It's Chicago. You got tons of money.
I'm going to ask you, Kenny. This is the other reason why I actually came in, because do you think, this is going to be a couple questions actually rolled into one. Does Matt Nagy keep his job throughout the year?
Yes.
And B, if they fire him, do they fire Pace as well?
Yes.
Okay, so if they indeed do that, Kenny, what exactly are they going to get after that? Because you've still got Ted Phillips upstairs making those decisions. Do you trust him going forward to make the right call again? Because he hasn't.
Well, put it like this. I'm good friends with Ted Phillips. I like Ted a lot. But I think he's got to go too.
Go after everybody.
I think you go everybody. I told you, I wipe out everybody. I wipe out the ball boys. I change the airplane. The airplane changes. The ball boy changes. The water boy goes. All the coaches goes. Everybody goes to Tony Metlin.
Okay, Kenny. All right, let me just retort a little bit. First of all, I do believe that the Bears within 5 or 6 years will be playing out in Arlington Heights. I think that's what ultimately is going to happen. They're going to need somebody who's in charge of the money, that part of the aspect. That's why Ted Phillips isn't going anywhere.
Well, I know he's not. Yeah, I know he's not going anywhere.
Okay, so I know that's just hyper reaction on your part.
Right.
But the two guys that are involved in football more than anybody else, Ryan Pace, like I said, he's done a horrible job constructing a team here over this 6-year period. And the coach who just is not good enough. Just sorry. You have to get somebody, and I don't know who it is. I mean, at least the Cubs, when they wanted to change everything, they went after the best guy possible, and they got Theo Epstein, okay?
Right.
I don't know who that best guy is for football, but you know what? Find out who it is, offer him the moon, and tell him the keys are yours. We can't keep going with coaches who have never coached before, head coaches. We can't go with guys who are the assistants down in New Orleans or anywhere else and give them the keys to the Cadillac, or the house and say, turn our franchise around. It's not good enough.
Why not let Ted be head of business only?
Right. It's what I'm saying.
And then bring in somebody to be head of football. Ted doesn't have a new coach.
Yeah. Like, what if you bring in like an Olin Cruz to be president of football operations?
No, that's not good enough. No,
Maybe.
no.
That's not good enough. That's not
You
enough.
don't think
No.
Olin would be good enough at that job?
No,
You got to bring in
Alan,
somebody with experience.
Alan, don't be a star fucker. Just because you're being a star fucker. Alan, he was a great player, and maybe you can find a role for him in the organization as a coach or something else. But to all of a sudden elevate him to the president of football operations? Be serious.
Okay. You got to find somebody with experience, somebody that had that job, or like a vice president. Let Ted do business and get the team at Arlington Heights. Bring in somebody football only. You don't worry about business. Ted, you don't worry about football. Go get somebody who's a president of football or a vice president with experience. Give him the keys and say, now you go find me a coach and a general manager and an offensive coordinator that can work with Justin Fields. Because right now, this ain't happening.
All right. Anything else on the Bears before I lose my lunch?
Fair enough.
All right, real quickly, and again, Alan, any other comments, please chime in, as well as anybody else who's out there. Again, this is interactive. Love to hear from everybody. We're ragging on the Bears.
What can you say besides the Bears suck? I don't know what else you can say.
I really don't know. Peyton Manning was a great quarterback, but no.
I got to have experience.
Somebody who's won at the highest level, who has run a football operation, not an assistant who worked under somebody who ran the football operation and did it successfully somewhere else. That's who you're looking for. Okay. All right, around the NFL, Kenny, I mean, some of the games that stood out to me today, and again, that 66-yard field goal by, what was this kid's name again? I got to find it here. Justin Tucker.
Justin Tucker. Okay, yeah.
Justin Tucker. 66-yard field goal. And so his field goal was exactly 19 yards more than the entire Bears offense. How about that?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Right. And one of the Facebook people chiming in saying that a game like this could ruin, and they're right. I don't think that Justin Fields is going to get ruined by this one game. However, and he did have an injured hand that they X-rayed, and the X-rays, I'm sure, will probably come back negative if they haven't already. But
yeah, I
think he's confident enough and cool enough that he won't. But Mike, like I said earlier on, he's got to say after today's game, like, what the F? I mean, I got to get some protection. I can't do this by myself. I mean, you just
nobody.
can't.
I'm telling you, I don't care who you put back there. I'm telling you, you could have put Tom Brady back there. You could put Aaron Rodgers back there. It wouldn't make a difference. You could put Johnny Unitas back there. Why you tell? And it doesn't make a difference. With that offensive line today, no one would have done better than Justin Fields. And thank goodness that he's athletic enough to get out of the way, because he could have got sacked 20 times instead of 9. But he's quick. He got out of a couple of them.
Yeah, he did. I just, I don't want to get the kid killed. I mean, he's athletic and he's in all the good things, but you get your body beat up as much as he got beat up today. And if it happens on a consistent basis, then you worry about his health and you do worry about his psyche down the road. So the Facebook point that somebody just threw out there is well taken. All right,
I don't even know if he'll even be able to get out of bed tomorrow. He's going to be really sore.
All right, let's see. Josh Allen had 4 touchdown passes. Buffalo beats Washington. Justin Herbert, 4 touchdown passes. Kansas City is not the same team that they were 2 years ago when they won it all easily. They lose. They're 1-2 already. And, as much as we're ragging on the Bears, at least they got one win under their belt against Cincinnati, who rebounded against Pittsburgh. The 2 New York teams, Kenny, I love this when it happens. They're 0-6 behind.
Hey, it's New York. They deserve it. They deserve it.
As much as they're going to be ragging on sports radio tomorrow morning here in Chicago, trust me, on the Fan tomorrow in New York.
What about the newspapers tomorrow?
Yeah, them too. Matthew Stafford had 4 touchdown passes. The Rams win again. They're 3-0. Las Vegas, the Raiders, they're back. They win. 3-0. They're 3-0. They beat Miami. Let's see. And Arizona's also 3-0. They beat Jacksonville. And by the way, it's not only Justin Fields. All the rookie quarterbacks, you can run them all down. They were all drafted in the first round this year. None of them are really doing any good whatsoever. It's a learning process in the NFL. It just is.
Well, it's the toughest position in all the sports to learn.
It is.
And when you're a rookie, and remember what Justin said in the preseason, the game wasn't the speed, wasn't that big of a deal. Well,
he was wrong.
That was because it was preseason. Now, when it counts, you have the regulars coming at you at full speed. the game a lot quicker. But I mean, it's the most difficult position in all the sports to learn. So I think he's the right guy for the job. He just had to get an offensive coordinator that knows what the hell he's doing, and he doesn't have that, which is the shame.
All right, let's switch sports. Let's go to baseball. I mean, the White Sox, they won today in Cleveland. I mean, these last regular season games mean almost nothing. They're not going to catch Houston for that home field advantage in that playoff series between the two of them. And they have one more road game tomorrow, and then they come home and play Cincinnati. And who's the last series? I think, is it Detroit? I don't even know who it is.
I think it's Detroit.
Well, what are your thoughts? I mean, they're fighting a health problem themselves. Dylan Cease is going to pitch the last regular season game. Who else are we talking about? Rodon might pitch on Wednesday. He's battling some shoulder problems. Lance Lynn, has not been that good over his last, I'd say, half dozen starts. His velocity's down. So it's always about pitching, Kenny. I mean, people can say what they want about the Sox offense being hot and cold. More often than not, it's been cold lately. But it's all about pitching in the postseason. And right now, I worry about their pitching, honestly.
Well, I don't know if I would even start Rodon this week. Why? It doesn't mean anything.
I think they want to find out if he's healthy or not.
Yeah, that scares me. I don't think I would do it. It scares me. What the White Sox don't have, all the good things they do have, but they do not have a number one pitcher. They don't have a number one starter. They need to go out and get a Schuster, somebody that can come in, shut it down. I mean, Giolito looked good today, but he's a great number two. I don't think he's going to be a good number one. The injuries worry me, but all year this team has been banged up. It's unbelievable the job that Tony La Russa has done with White Sox, considering how banged up this team has been. It's unbelievable to go through what they've gone through with injuries and still win the division. Now, is it the best division in baseball? Of course not. It's probably the weakest division in baseball, but they're still going to win 90 games. So you can't take that away from them. But I worry about their pitching with Houston. I really do. And Houston's going to have home field advantage. Those first two games are going to be in Houston. That worries me, David. I'm being honest with you. I'm not worried about the offense. I'm not worried about the defense when they play it. They can play it. They had a horrible game last night. Today they played better offensively and defensively. But I'm worried about that pitching because they do not have a go-get-them, knock-them-down number one starter. And that's what you need in the playoffs.
You are 100. Can you be 101% right? You're at least 100% right on that. Yeah, in the postseason, if you have like a Scherzer, like you said, or a Garrett Cole when he was at the top of his game, and a few others, Clayton Kershaw at the top of his game, you can go into either a best of 5 or a best of 7 series and know that guy is going to pitch twice, maybe even 3 times in a best of 7 series potentially. Right. But the White Sox, you're right, Kenny, 100% correct. They don't have that number one. They have a bunch of number 2 and 3 guys. Lance Lynn early in the season was getting close to being a 1. Giolito at times pitches like he's a number 1, but he's not consistent enough to be a number 1, honestly. And so, I mean, and Houston can score some runs. Their pitching is not so great either at times, by the way. So that'll be an interesting series.
Well, and then Tony versus Dusty, they don't like each other. you know, the senior citizen managers.
Right.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And hey, don't you think that Dusty would not love to wrap up that series in Chicago after managing the Cubs and then getting booted out and the Cubs win the World Series after he leaves? And I tell you what, he would love to win that series in Chicago. And I'm just worried about the pitching. I'm not worried about the White Sox hitting. When they play well on defense, they get their minds into it. We can play pretty good defense. Offensively, they're unbelievably talented. But I'm worried about the pitching. I really am.
You think Rick Renteria might call Dusty and try and give him a few tips on how to beat the White Sox?
I think he's already done it. He probably took his big old stack of books and said, Dusty, here, boom, here's what I got for you. And no question about it.
I just want to talk about one White Sox player. I mean, we can go over. Eloy Jimenez has been, hot and cold. When he's hot and he's on, he hits the ball a long ways, obviously. Jose Abreu is fantastic. He, everybody says he's reminds them of Albert Pujols. You know who he reminds me of, Kenny? He reminds me of Tony Perez. He's an RBI machine, and that's what Tony Perez was on the Big Red Machine. That's what Jose Abreu is.
You got that right. He is an RBI machine. It's unbelievable. He's driven in 100 runs every year but one, not counting last year. Right. And he had 60 in 60 games.
That's
last
correct.
year.
Correct.
but he's unbelievable. You're right. He is a big red machine, Tony Perez. If there's an RBI situation, now this year is going to be his lowest batting average. He's going to hit about 260, but he's already driven in, 113 runs?
Yeah.
He's an RBI machine. Nobody knows how old he is, but as long as he can keep hitting, who cares if he's 38, 39, or 40? As long as he can keep hitting the baseball like that, and you get someone to hit behind him, it's going to be pretty exciting, hopefully, for the White Sox to make a long trip into October.
Tim Anderson has been fantastic also. Hopefully he's healthy enough, for the postseason. But the one guy I just wanted to point out one more time, and here's Alan, who's just beating me to the punch by putting this up, even though you spelled Luis Roberts' name wrong. It's well, maybe you didn't. I'm not really sure. Anyway, Luis Robert he's going to be.
It's right.
Is it right?
Yeah.
Listen, I flunked spelling in fourth grade, so what do I know? Anyway, Luis Robert is unbelievable, and he's still, what is he, only 22, 23 at the most?
He's going to be a multiple all-star. He can run the bases. He's a gold glove in center field. If he didn't tear that hip, how many home runs would he have if he didn't get hurt? I mean, this young man, when he gold glove, he covers the outfield. He can go left, he can go right, he can go deep. He's situational hitting. He cuts down on the swing and gets a single when they need it. Goes for the home run when they got to have it. You're right, David, this young man, and I'm glad they tied him up long term because he's going to be a multiple all-star. He's going to be a superstar. I mean that with a capital S. He is going to be a superstar.
That was money well spent when they got him in the international signing draft or whatever the hell they call that thing. So,
and you know what? And you got to give the White Sox credit for that too. They do a great job getting the international players over here for cheap, not a lot of money, and they tie them up long term. They do a wonderful job with that. They really do.
All right. Let's go to the other side of town. Not so wonderful. Again, their home season ended today. They handed the Cardinals their 16th straight win. I got 16 straight wins in any sport at any level is really an accomplishment. So
did you see the Cardinals? You see the Cardinals yesterday, the way they were jumping up and down and high fiving and stealing. I mean, it reminded me of the Little League World Series. Those guys like was it Bader? I mean, he high fiving, jumping up and down, and these guys were stealing bases, diving head first, and then coming back to the bench. Guys were running out, high fiving. They were having fun. They were laughing at the Cubs. It reminded me of a Little League World Series. These guys were having a lot of fun.
You know what could, though, unfortunately happen for the Cardinals? Listen, they could run the rest of the regular season games and finish up on a 22-game winning streak and not have home field advantage in that one wild card game against the Dodgers and go up against Max Scherzer and get shut out and you go home. So you could come off a 22-game winning streak and go home.
Right. You're going to go up against Scherzer and still not make it. But you got to give the Cardinals credit. Remember the All-Star break? They were dead.
Yeah.
They were dead. But they went out, got some help, and look at them now. 16 straight. Which just goes to show you how crazy the Lakers won at 33 straight in the NBA. We're here talking about 16 straight in baseball. What a great accomplishment that was. 33 was just unbelievable in baseball. I mean, in basketball. That's unheard of.
And I remember the Sunday afternoon when they lost to Milwaukee. It was Jabbar against, was he Alcindor then?
No, he was Jabbar.
He was Jabbar then?
I think it just changed it to Jabbar.
Okay, so he was Jabbar then, and it was they knocked off the Lakers. It was a Sunday afternoon in the old Mecca building in Milwaukee. I remember that game like it was yesterday. Yeah. All right, as far as the Cubs go, Jed Hoyer has said numerous times now over the last couple of weeks. I heard him again on MLB TV saying they will spend lots of money in the offseason. They'll have lots of money, Kenny. The question is, will they spend it, and will they get whatever free agents they're going for? And I took a closer look at the free agent class that's now available. A lot of the guys that we thought were going to be free agents have already re-signed long-term deals. But, I mean, Freddie Freeman's out there, Nick Castellanos, who, he might already have his decisions made about the Cubs organization from playing here that part of the season. Robbie Ray's a free agent. Now, that's who they should go after.
If they can get Ray, I'll all hands on deck to get Ray. And I like Freeman. I would go for Freeman, too.
I like Freeman, but you know what? I got to say that Frank Schwindel is playing awfully well at first base. I mean, I'm not going to get fooled by some of the guys who are doing some of the things decently, and Schwindel is, might be included in that. But I do like he's been very consistent ever since being given the opportunity.
Well, I'm not excited about a 30-year-old rookie.
I know
that doesn't excite me.
No, you're right about that. Obviously, I'm just saying here's a guy who's gotten his opportunity, and if they don't go out and sign a guy like Freddie Freeman for first base, I wouldn't have a problem with Schwindel because, like I said, you even take a look at at Patrick Wisdom, who's hit a lot of home runs, but now all of a sudden is striking out a lot also. And I don't know if I want to hang my hat on him going forward. And he's not the youngest player either.
Right.
So it's really, I don't know what the Cubs are going to do. I mean, and I've asked everybody who I've had on now for like the last month, don't you think that Tom Ricketts, as owner of the Cubs, should have a press conference? He should have had it already, to be honest with you, but should have a press conference at the end of the season. And Nolan Arenado is another possibility at third base. Yes.
Boy, that's a hell of a possibility.
Yeah, but you know what? I think he likes being in St. Louis. I'm going to be honest.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. I think Tom's got to come out and tell the public,
yeah,
here's my game plan. Here's what we want to do. Here's what we're going to do. Now, maybe he'll do that at the end of the season. I don't know. But you're right, because the fans just want to know what direction will this team be headed to, because ticket prices are very high. Cub fans are extremely loyal. I looked at it today. Once the restrictions were lifted in June, where they can go up to 100% capacity, the Cubs, even with this bad team, when they get sold off, they still drew 1.9 million people, which is a lot considering. Remember, April, May, and part of June, your limits are what, 20%, 25%. So they still drew almost 2 million people, which is pretty incredible. So yeah, I think Tom should, and he may be just waiting for the end of the year, like they do in football. You're not going to hear from Ryan Pace till the end of the year. So maybe Tom will come out in the end of the year and say, or Jed Hoyer, here's what we're going to do. Here's the game plan. Here's what I want to do. And maybe, just maybe, they'll hire a general manager also.
Oh, they will. I'm pretty confident that Jed Hoyer will hire a general manager. All right. Anyway, there's not really much else to say about the Cubs. They have a long ways to go. They need, in my estimation, 2, if not 3 new starting pitchers. They need a closer. They need to actually change most of the bullpen. They need 2 outfilders.
First baseman.
Let's see. I think Madrigal will be their second baseman next year. Like I said, it'll either be Schwindel or they'll sign a free agent at first base. Contreras will be on the final year of his contract. He'll be playing, for new money himself, if not being traded somewhere else. The bottom line is the Cubs need to retool their roster.
Yeah,
big time.
No question about it. Sometimes, David, when you win a World Series like the Cubs did, you fall in love with your players. And sometimes you keep them too long. It's better to trade them a year too early than a year too late. Remember, and I hate to keep going back to basketball, but remember the Boston Celtics. They had that great run, then they got old at once. And that's what happens, because Father Time will catch up with everybody. And the Cubs, I think, maybe kept those guys a little bit too long. They fell in love with them because they won that World Series in 2016. But those guys were in their 30s then. So I think they held on to them a little bit too long. They have to retool it. But one thing you're going to know, fans are going to come out to Wrigley Field regardless.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of basketball, and I wanted to bring up this special with you because you and I could talk about this next subject, honestly, for until midnight, if not later. High school basketball. I've always taken pride of being from the Chicagoland area for high school basketball, and I know you do too. And I when I was on the Score and doing shows, I would do at least once a year bring up. And people came out of the woodworks talking about that, about your all-time favorite high school and best basketball players that you saw growing up or, currently or whatever. And so I'm going to throw it at you, Kenny. I mean, I got a list of 100, literally 100 different players here that I think are worthy of mention, of course.
Well, remember, Rob Feeder's the one that tagged me as the voice of high school basketball and high school sports in Chicago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah, that's what Rob Feeder calls me. I'm the voice of high school. Well, how many high school basketball games do I broadcast a year? 40, 50. But anyway, go ahead. I've seen them all.
Okay, yeah, I know you have. And like I said, I could run down every one of these names. I literally have almost 100 names here on my list. But I gave my top 5, okay?
Okay.
And you'll probably agree, if not with all of them, most of them, okay? My top 5 that I've seen
Okay, let me write this down here.
Right, and even my second 5 is pretty effing good.
Okay, go ahead. I got a pen.
All right, the top 5, and I'm going to start with who I think is probably the best high school player I've ever seen, and that's Isaiah.
Okay.
Isaiah's number 1. His buddy, who was drafted 1-2 in the NBA draft, Mark Aguirre, is number 2. The player who unfortunately didn't get the chance, and I know you're going to agree with this, Ben Wilson is on that team also.
Yep.
Then I got Kevin Garnett, and I have D. Rose. Those are my top 5 in the area. And I'm not just talking Chicago itself. It could be in the suburbs also.
Well, you know what? Number 1 to me is Ben Wilson. He's the best high school basketball player I ever saw. And forget the fact that he and I were extremely close friends. I think most people know that. But this guy, you talk about, they say he was Magic Johnson with a jump shot. He was better than Magic Johnson with a jump shot. That's how good he was. David, you name it, he can do it. I had him at DePaul with me. So we were playing in the gym. He had Rod Strickland, who was an NBA player for 16 years. Jerome Lane, who went to Pitt, played in the NBA, and Kenny Patterson. They triple teamed Ben Wilson. Ben was a junior in high school, and those 3 guys could not get the ball away from him. And they triple teamed him, and he was 6'8". It was, he would put the ball like a globetrotter on his hand, down his neck, down over here, in between the legs. He was unbelievable. I would say Ben Wilson, number 1. And I didn't know you were going to do this to me, so this is off the cuff. Right. I would say Isaiah, probably number 2. Marcus Liberty, number 3 from King. Mark, my good buddy, number 4. And Derek is right there at number 5. I mean, you also got to think about Jamie Brandon from King as well, who I think steals the state's all-time leading scorer. But I think I'll give it to Derrick Rose by this much over Jamie Brandon. But I can't forget Marcus Liberty.
Okay, so you have, and I got Marcus Liberty on my second top team of all time instead of Kevin Garnett. And Kevin was only here 1 year, by the way.
Well, that's why I don't count Kevin.
Okay, which is fine. I get it. I'm just talking about players who have come, from the area. My second 5 is Doc Rivers. Cassie Russell, who I didn't really watch, but I know how good he was. I just know how good he was. Marcus Liberty, Nick Anderson, and a player that I was lucky enough to watch when I was in high school myself, and that's Jim Brewer from Proviso East.
Jim Brewer, he was a monster, and he's on the Olympic team. People forget he was on that 72 Olympic team. Jim Brewer was unbelievably talented. And another guy that doesn't get the credit he deserves is Eddie Johnson.
I got him further down.
Oh, Eddie was a tremendous scorer, and that's how a lot of people found Mark Aguirre going to scout Eddie Johnson. He was a tremendous scorer. But one guy that people don't talk about, the only guy in the history of the state to be All-State 4 years is Glenwald.
Right.
Glenn was unbelievably talented, and he went to Indiana and tore up his knee. And now, he's been great in the front offices of several NBA ball players. But, you can go about this all day, all night. But Mark was unbelievable at the size he was. Before Mark lost weight, Mark was 300+ pounds, and you still couldn't stop him. But, Marcus Liberty was unbelievable. Jim Brewer was a great pick. He was unbelievable at Minnesota. He was tremendous.
And Grunwald, of course, played with our good buddy Tom Dorr at Leiden High School, back in the day. Unfortunately, they never won a championship, but they were really good. I'm just going to throw some other names. I mean, again, there's so much fun. I love talking about this. And there's Dee Brown, there's Jalen Brunson, there's Quinn Buckner, who was the quintessential winner, Ronnie Fields, Rashard Griffith, Eddie Curry, Jaleel Okafor, Jabari Parker, Quentin Richardson. Who else have I got here? John Shire, Chris Collins, Deion Thomas was fantastic. Kenny Battle, Russell Cross from Manly High School.
Big Russ. He was dominant in Manly. Went to Purdue, and then he went to the Golden State Warriors, a first-round pick. He just didn't really have the heart to play basketball in the pros. He just played a lot longer, but he was unbelievable at Manly.
And just more names I'm going to keep throwing at you. Terry Cummings, Walter Downing, who was at Providence, and I think that was Class A back in those days.
Yeah, I got him to come to DePaul with me. And Walter's a great defensive player. Oh my goodness, he blocked shots. I'm sure he probably blocked more shots than anybody else in the history of the state of Illinois. And people forget Walter had one leg longer than the other from a motorcycle accident. So he had a lift in his shoe, but he could shoot a turnaround jump shot, banker. Boy, he could block shots. He was tremendous at DePaul, and he finished up at Marquette.
Okay, got more names. From the Three Amigos, Michael Finley, of course. Ricky Green.
And Michael Finley was the third option.
Right.
Of the Three Amigos, Sherelle Ford was the first option, Donnie Brown the second.
Right.
Yeah.
Ricky Green, who's the fastest guy I've ever seen dribbling a basketball, bar anybody. Fastest guy ever. Teddy Grubbs, Lowell Hamilton, Hersey Hawkins, of course, was fantastic.
Hey, let me stop you at Teddy Grubbs. If you remember Teddy Grubbs at King, how high he could jump. He would get offensive rebounds and tip dunks. He would be looking down in the basket. And I had Isaiah on my show, and we talked about when DePaul went to UCLA and Pauley Pavilion, and Mark had like 20, but 5. You looked up, Teddy had 30. Teddy had 30, and it was his first collegiate game. Teddy Grubbs was unbelievably talented in high school, and if I'm not mistaken, he was the most valuable player in the McDonald's All-American game.
Yeah, he was incredibly talented. He had some personal problems. Anthony Davis, of course. The late Mark Cartwright. I'm not really familiar with him. Niles West, 1970.
I don't know Mark Cartwright. But one guy you didn't mention that a lot of people forget, and I don't know if he was fast as Ricky Green, but he was quicker than Ricky Green. That was a healthy Ronnie Lester.
Ronnie Lester, of course. Yeah, Ronnie Lester was really good before he unfortunately got injured.
You know what? Magic Johnson, in his book, My Life, says Ronnie Lester was the best player he ever played against.
Wow, that's high praise.
I'm telling you what, he would eat Isaiah up. He used to kill Isaiah. Ronnie was so good. And Rod Thorne, who drafted Michael Jordan, and I quote, I had more confidence in Ronnie Lester than anyone I ever drafted when he was healthy. That's
went to Iowa. Unfortunately, he tore up his knee. He was never really the same player. Juwan Howard, Eddie Johnson, who you mentioned, and Ronnie Lester, I got on my list. Corey Mcgetty. Corey Mcgetty was a great player.
At Fenwick, he was unbelievably talented because he was so big and strong. He was like a man among boys.
Yeah. Antoine Walker, who I know that you know very well.
I never say Antoine because people say, well, you're going to talk about your son, of course, so we'll leave him out. Yeah.
Patrick Beverly, of course. Tom Kleinschmidt, who went to DePaul, as you well know also.
Another McDonald's All-American, and I tell you what, he could shoot, get in the corner, and it's not surprising to me that he's doing a great job at DePaul College Prep because Tommy was always a coach on the floor.
Cool. Maurice Cheeks is one of my favorite players of all time. I saw him in high school at DuSable. I saw him in college at West Texas State, of course, in the pros. Now he's an assistant coach for the Bulls. One of my favorites of all time. Dave Corzine going further back. Bo Ellis, Kendall Gill, our good friend. Tim Hardaway. I mean, I'm going further down the list.
Kenny Battle. Kenny Battle.
Star players, each and every one of them. Yep. That's why I've always taken pride. I don't know why, because I wasn't one of them, but Chicagoland basketball, not just the city, but the burbs as well. Sure. Just unbelievable pride in Chicago basketball. And I've had arguments with people from New York and Los Angeles. Yeah, ours is just as good. No, it's not.
New York may be close. Los Angeles ain't not in the picture. Los Angeles is not in the picture. New York, okay, you can go all the way back to Kareem and Tiny Archibald. You go, not bad. But we're talking high school, not pro. Right. But Chicago, to me, is the best around. I mean, we're a blue-collar city. Guys work real hard. You see a guy like Derrick Rose coming from Inglewood out in the park at night. I used to be out there with Mark. When it was snow, you would just get a shovel and a broom and move the snow off the playground because they didn't have a lot of open gyms back then, and be outside shooting the basketball. I mean, Marcus Liberty was unbelievable. Of course, to me, Ben Wilson was the best I've ever seen. We got a whole lot. Isaiah, Mark. You're right, David. It is so good to be in Chicago basketball. And even in high school, you could tell Doc Rivers was going to be a tremendous, not only pro, but you knew he was going to be a great coach because he always thought 2 plays ahead. That's what I said on broadcast about Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson saw 3 plays ahead. Every game you saw, you could see him thinking, and he would give the ball up. He'd go to a point where he just knew it would get back around to him. He always was thinking ahead, and that's what makes Jalen Brunson get a lot of time with the Dallas Mavericks.
Howard Bolgetz just put up on there, and he's 100% right. Bob Lackey, who played at Evanston Township High School, and I saw him when I was a little kid because they played in the same conference where I grew up, and I would watch Bob Lackey. That's where I first saw Jim Brewer also, because it was the old Suburban Conference, and just great basketball. And I don't want to short shrift female players from this area, because we've had some of the top female players, of course.
Well,
also.
you know what? I did a thing during the All-Star game 2 years ago. They asked for our Mount Rushmore, and I put Candace Parker on my Mount Rushmore.
I got it right. I got it right here. Candace Parker, Tamika Catchings, and her sister also. Cappy Pondexter.
Happy Pondexter. Hey, Janet Harris out of Marshall. You talk about a ball player. Oh my goodness. Janet Harris. There was Jennifer Jones out of Marshall. At one time, Dorothy Gators had, I think, 5 straight Miss Basketballs. Over on that west side, man, we had some tremendous players come out of Marshall.
Cool. All right. I want to get to our final segment. Like I said, I could talk about high school basketball all night long because I just love talking about it, especially from the area. But now we have Stump the Kenny Mac. And we're going to put him sort of on the grill here. And I'm
terrible at this.
Well, but I tailored a lot of these questions towards you, Kenny. So
okay,
we'll see how you do. And everybody, if they don't know, knows, I think, that you're very close with the Hawk, Andre Dawson. Very, very close.
My best friend, yeah.
Yeah. So the first question is in regards to Andre, who went into the Hall of Fame in the year 2010. Okay?
I was there.
And I knew you would. Okay, Kenny. So you should know the answer to this one. Who else was inducted besides him that year?
He was the only player.
That's correct. That is correct.
The only player.
There were 2. And I'm not talking about the Veterans Committee or anything.
Okay. Hawk was the only player that went in, and
that's right.
On the Veterans Committee was the umpire.
That's right. That's Doug Harvey.
Doug Harvey, and then it was Whitey Herzog.
Whitey Herzog. So you got that one. You see, you're already doing good.
Yeah, he went in July 25th, the day before my birthday.
Okay, very good.
Hey, can I tell you one quick story? I don't know how much time you got, but you have time to tell you one good Andre Dawson story. As you know, David, in 2017, I was extremely sick and I actually died, and they brought me back. So they called Andre and said they've downgraded Kenny from serious to critical. He's not going to make it. Andre was at a gym in Miami. He lives in Miami on a bicycle, on an exercise bike, just a short and a T-shirt. Once he got the phone call, he jumped off the exercise bike and went right to the airport in a T-shirt and shorts and flew to the hospital to be at my bedside. You don't get much better friend than that. And I love Andre. And then he asked my mother, could he accept my Chicago Sports Hall of Fame award for me because I was in the hospital. But he jumped on an airplane in a T-shirt and shorts in Miami and flew right to Chicago in October. That's a good friend.
Yeah, Hawk was always one of the best guys to deal with when he was on the Cubs and elsewhere. And unfortunately, he had to wait for him about an hour after every game because he was icing down those knees. But he was fantastic. And then I think one time you actually told him, hey, David's got to do an interview. And I don't even remember what it was for. And we did it when he came to the ballpark. I think he was an ambassador already at this juncture. And he gave me such a nice interview. I don't remember what we talked about. It was obviously about baseball. And so I appreciate that and him as well. All right, the next one. Mm-hmm. Who is the only Chicago high school player ever to win Mr. Basketball twice?
Jeremy Richmond? It wasn't Jeremy?
Nope.
Then
you should know this one.
Would it be Jabari?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
I was going to say Jabari, who I saw the other day at the Sky game, but I thought it may have been Jeremy Richmond, but if it wasn't Jeremy, then I knew it was Jabari.
It was Jabari. He won it twice. Now, I didn't realize this until after I did a little research. Since Jabari, another player downstate from Belleville West, E.J. Lindell.
Oh, yeah, at Ohio State. Yeah.
Yeah, he's at Ohio State. That's correct.
Yeah, I tell you what, he's good. He's really good.
Is he?
Yeah, he went back this year, too. He put his name in the draft. He took it out. He went back. He'll be a first-round pick this next draft. He's really good.
Okay.
Little undersized, about 6'5" for a power forward.
Yeah.
He's very talented. And he's a man among boys when it comes to the state tournament. They've won the last 2 years.
Right. All right, next one. And everybody should know this if they don't, that you're very close with Derek. Derek Rose, obviously, also. He's the youngest player ever to win the NBA MVP at 22. Before him, who was the youngest NBA MVP?
I have no idea. So I'm just going to throw it out and say Kareem. I don't know.
No, not Kareem.
I have no idea.
All right. I will give you just a hint. He was an undersized center, but he set the
Wes Unseld.
Wes Unseld.
He was
it's
MVP
funny.
and a Rookie of the Year.
That's correct.
Same
it's funny.
year.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's funny because when you talk about Wes Unseld setting picks on the court, which he did, he also, when he was coach, and I would be doing stats on the broadcast at center court, he would stand in front of me. I'm telling you, it was like an eclipse. I could not see around this guy. He was the widest guy. He was only 6'7", but he was 6'7" wide also.
Yeah, great outlet pass.
Yeah, he was.
Great outlet pass.
He really was. All right. So we talked about the youngest NBA MVP. Who's the oldest NBA MVP ever?
I'll say Kareem.
No.
Who?
Karl Malone.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have. How old was he?
35.
Really? Okay.
And
I thought
because it should have been Jordan. That's all I needed to say.
Oh yeah, I mean honestly, Michael
could have won every year.
every year.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know he was 35. I thought he was younger. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Two more. Speaking of Jordan, he wore 3 numbers in his NBA career. You know, 2 of them. What's the third
23,
one?
45, and 12.
That is correct. 12 is the last one. And the story with number 12. The Bulls were playing down in Orlando. It was Valentine's Day, and someone broke in and stole his uniform. It was probably on. I don't want to say who. But it might be on eBay. I made Kenny laugh. He knows what I'm talking about.
Oh.
And so he had to wear an alternate uniform that one game in Orlando. It's so funny because he wore the 12 that game. I don't know what the score of that game who won. But then, against Orlando, when he went 45 and Nick Anderson, we're talking about Nick Anderson again, said after Orlando beat the Bulls in that playoff series, and this is when Michael first came back, 45 isn't as good as 23. And that pissed off Michael. He worked super hard the whole off season. And as always, he used that to his advantage.
And he went back to 23.
Yeah. What number did he wear when he was in the Olympics? Do you remember that?
I want to say 8. Was it 8?
One more.
9.
He wore number 9. I have no idea why.
Well, because they go 1 through, like 12, whatever.
Does it? I didn't even know that, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. One last one. Okay. One more on Michael. When Michael was, and I was there this day for this, when he was presented the Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, who was the guy whose presenter?
Walter Davis.
Not Walter.
Oh, not Walter Davis. I mean, I'm sorry.
Say again?
David Thompson?
David Thompson is correct. David Thompson. Michael sort of grew up, sort of idolizing David Thompson, a 6'4" guard from NC State who played a lot like Michael did, high flyer and everything like that. Right. So
I meant him to say that first. I just, Walter Davis, I know Michael liked him too, but it was David Thompson.
Yeah.
So they don't even do the Hall of Fame at the same place now. Now they do it in the arena. I see they've done it the last couple of years in the arena instead of in that hall. But I loved Michael's Hall of Fame speech when he ripped the Hall of Fame, jacking up the ticket prices.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was there for that, obviously, when Michael went in. And that morning, they did a press conference, and Michael was so, what's the word I'm looking for? He was so modest and everything else. And I don't know, maybe he had a couple belts. I don't know, to be honest with you. But then later that night, when he was finally inducted and he had that speech in front of the whole, arena or whatever you want to call it, the hall. I mean, he took off on everybody, Jerry Krause and everybody else, his whole high school, the guys on the high school team that cut him, yada, 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 yada. But it's so interesting. Listen, in my mind,
Mike high school coach was there.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I love the story he talked about Tex. Yeah, when Tex, he went off for like 20 points and in the fourth quarter, and they won. Tex said there's no I in team. And Michael said, yeah, but there's an I in win. So they won.
I'll go down to saying probably the highlight of my quote unquote career is that I got to deal with Michael Jordan during his whole career. And I saw just about every one of his games, certainly every home game that he played in. And that's the greatest athlete I'll ever hope to be around. You talk about all the great high school players, and they were all fantastic. But Michael was the top. He was the King Kong of them all. He was the best of the best. No ifs, ands, or buts.
No question. No ifs, ands, or buts about him. I got a chance to meet him his sophomore year in in college. When he came in town for the Playboy All-American team. I took him out that night. And lo and behold, the Bulls drafted him. But we'll never see a Michael Jordan again. I mean, no matter what, we will never see that again. And people say, who's the GOAT of basketball?
Michael.
And I'll say Michael, and not even just because of what he did on the court, because what he did for the NBA. He made it a global game. There's no NBA TV. There's none of all this stuff online. There's no $200 million contracts. All that's because of Michael Jordan. He took the NBA to a level that was unheard of and unthought of. And it's all because of Michael Jordan. So take away what he did on the court. What he did for the game off the court makes him the GOAT right there.
Absolutely. And, people will throw out, LeBron and Kobe and some of the other guys. And LeBron, of course. The only other guy I would put in the potential of being alongside would be Wilt for a different reason. Wilt was the most dominating big man and,
Ever.
Russell ever. And Russell winning all those championships while Wilt was dominating the game is still beyond, but that's because his team was so fantastic. But Wilt was a great athlete, who also happened to be
a high jumper.
Yeah. And sprinter.
Yeah. What about Kareem?
Kareem is right there, but a different way. Wilt, though, I think at both guys' prowess at the top, I think Wilt was even better than Kareem. And I take nothing away from Kareem. He's on my Mount Rushmore also of top players in the NBA history.
Yeah. Well, I think Kareem is probably the best basketball player of all time because there's no question he was the best high school player ever. There's no question he's the best collegiate player ever. The battle comes with the NBA. You got to be in the top 3 or 4. But there's no question when it comes to high school or college that Kareem was the best high school and college player. He was the best college player anybody ever saw. And then the battle comes with who's number 2. I'll say Bill Walton.
Bill Walton was unbelievable. I remember Greg Lee to Bill Walton, those jams all the time and all the guys that they played. I love when I was a kid watching UCLA, we used to have it on the UHF channels, Kenny, watch them late at night, those games. Mm-hmm. It helped me further fall in love with basketball. No question.
Yeah. Well, watching UCLA would make anybody fall in love with basketball because John Wooden taught those guys how to play the right way.
The best bank shooter of all time, was Keith Wilkes, Jamal Wilkes.
Oh, Bill? Okay. Yeah. No question about it. He was unbelievable. I mean, you can go up and down the list of the UCLA players, and they all played the right way. One thing I loved about John Wooden, everybody did everybody else's drills. So when it was time to do the guards drills, everybody did them, including the centers. When it was time to do the forwards drills, everybody did them, including the guards. And when it was time to do the center drills, everybody did the center drills. So you knew everything on the court, and you knew what to do. And it was just a thing of beauty to watch those John Wooden teams play.
See, Kenny, I told you and I could talk hoops until the cows come home to midnight and then well past. But I'm going to wrap it up right here. I appreciate you joining us. This is a lot of fun for me. I hope it was for you as well. Kenny, you can catch Kenny on TV, radio. He's at the ballpark, you name it. He's around. He's an institution here in Chicago. Love you, buddy, and I appreciate you joining us.
Well, David, thanks so much. It's really, really my pleasure to be here with you. I really appreciate you asking me to come, and I'll see you at the ballpark, and be sure to bring my gift certificate for whatever free meal I get for doing your show.
That's Alan with that should have been a laugh track. That's what it really should have been. Not an applause.
No, see, all I'm doing, I'm just trying to help Kenny get it. That's all I'm doing.
All right, that's
what I'm doing.
And that's fine. Do me a favor, make sure I get one then too, because
absolutely.
Right now I'm void.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, David. It was truly my pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
All right, and to everybody out there, appreciate you listening and viewing in, and we will talk to you next week. Take care, everybody.